And so that was the late 80s, and then that led to this idea that when the UN got everyone together and in the early 90s created this climate change commission, this framework, which then led into the COP, Conference of the Parties, which I believe started in 1995 and then led to the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. I
Hmm.
mean, everybody was on cloud nine in the sense that we did this once 10 years ago, let's do this
Exactly.
again.
Yeah.
Right. But it hasn't quite
It'll
worked
be
out
so
that way, has
simple.
it?
Well, the problem is with CFCs, you could target one or two specific industrial practices, like what type of chemical we were putting in the tanks for our refrigerants and AC units, and it's fixed. Whereas with climate change, you have to address building and infrastructure and transportation and power generation and agriculture because oil has wrapped itself into a bunch of systems that it didn't need to be involved in. And you have, if you're really talking about climate change, about the polycrisis, as a whole, you have to talk about biodiversity collapse, so agriculture methods. You have to talk about plastic pollution and surfactants used in other industrial practices. So it's a much more complex, sprawling problem. But we created, as you said, UN-based agencies to start addressing this. And another big one to mention is the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is to say a body that aggregates all of the scientific papers on all of the topics related to the global biosphere and assembles regular policy papers and white papers on what we've learned about it as our measurements improve, as our models improve, and as things start to tip.
Right. Well, you're absolutely correct in terms of the complexity of it. I read recently this op-ed in the New York Times by one of the Greenpeace founders who wrote that he regrets, for the sake of simplicity, focusing in on carbon emissions and ignoring methane, which back in the day was a decision that made sense to try to simplify the message. But simplifying the message is an obvious issue, which is really just not possible because, as you said, there are just so many factors involved.